We go through the apologies of absence. So, we've got in terms of apology, Megan.
Apology from Chief Fire Officer Phil Monaghan, Temporary Assistant Chief Fire Officer Dean Loader, and Head of Finance, Procurement and Treasurer Lisa Mullen.
Right. Okay. We'll go on then with declarations of interest. Anyone got any new declarations other than those already submitted? No. Good. I have no announcements to make. So we've got the minutes on item 4. We take them for accuracy first, and then matches arising. Page 1 of the minutes, which is page 3 of the bundle. Page 2 of the minutes. Page 3. 4 and 5. No. We go to the outstanding actions. Now, this could be, because we're such an efficient committee, that nothing is left to action, or it could be we're just not making any decisions which need action in. So I think if we look at the previous minutes, there were issues that were there for notification. Chunk of today's agenda are annual reviews. So when we get to the work programme at the end, I'm going to take this away with Alison and we're going to go through it, and I'll explain what my thinking on that is nature, because otherwise we're just polishing the brass there. We need to be, if we look at where we've come from, a lot of the issues would be centering around or have a throughput through to the people committee, because it affects people, culture, performance, all of those things. So we therefore need to start to get into the bowels of issues, find out how, where's that. Okay, we'll come to that later on. Do you think it's now too warm in here, Gary? Do you think we've reached
going certain time?
I think we could just drop it just one notch, because it's still probably working its way up. Did you put it at 30 just to get rid of the cold air?
It was 22 and a
It
half.
was 29, it was.
Right. Moving on, we've got the annual review of training, learning and development. Brian?
Yeah. No, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid you're stuck with me again. Neil Davis is, I thought we put his apologies through, but he's tearing a panel today, so we'd rather be here, but that's why I can't make it, so I'll go through it. Obviously, we went through a very deep dive in the pre-made, so I'm just going to cover off some of the main points. So I can take you to page 12 on the we'll go straight into the 2.2 and talking about the Cardiff and Vale College. The relationship with Cardiff and Vale College, so they're our educational provider, they manage our apprenticeships. So what I want to point out there, if you go towards the bottom of the page and bullet points, you can see where they do an annual learner's voice, where we fit in with that in terms of our apprentices. So areas South Wales Financial Service scored highly in include: how would you rate the respect shown to you by all staff involved in the apprenticeship? So 100% rated is very good. Do you enjoy your learning? 97%. Yes, which is above the 95% average for other providers. For explaining the work required, 100% rated is very good, which is reassuring. And on stretching, do you do your best? 97% rated is good, which is above the Catholic average of 95%. So as we move into page 13 here, you'll see the paragraph around firefighter Avril Evans. So that's a really good addition to Cardiff Gate Training Development Centre. Avril's been a long-standing female firefighter in the service for a number of years and worked in Cardiff Central. And it wasn't long after COVID, I think, where we had a busy period where she moved into Cardiff Gate to help us out, getting through some courses, and she's stayed ever since. She loves the event. She wants to stay there for her career. But she's become a counsellor, so she's done a level 5 diploma and actually having a bit more representation as we diversify our workforce. It's a real good resource for our female trainee firefighters to lean into confidentially, informally or formally in the case. So at any point, I'm quite happy, Chair, for you to come in or anyone else come in and take questions. So celebrating achievement, just again, staying on the same page, 21% of our current apprentices on the programme are female firefighters. So that's a significant increase in probably where we were 10 years ago. And a number of our apprentices have were nominated for national awards.
So just on that then, because I was reflecting on the pass out.
Sure.
We want to where there was one female in relation to 23. So at 21%, I mean, we're looking there at 4%, aren't we?
We are, yeah. And that was the on-call conversion, of course, yeah.
Because it wasn't particularly diverse.
No, and when we do, no matter how well we do in that, it's going to be a perennial problem in it for the sector, you know, in spite of the tremendous work I know that People Services have done in the recruitment strategies and raising the profile of the service and the outreach work. It just seems to be one of those problems that persists. So, you know, it's how do we become a more diverse workforce? I mean, we've had some suggestions around things like pay, haven't we? Or particularly on the whole time where we increase the pay on year one and then year two, because that's a deselector, according to some feedback I've had from particularly females in Cardiff. They can't afford a 2-year pay cut. So those are things that we're within our gift to sort out.
Maybe we'll pick that up in more detail when we look at the recruitment.
But no, I wasn't trying to press. You're absolutely right. That's one I would kind of agree. So we looked at the finances and the apprenticeship program. So with the pay bill over 3 million, we've got to pay 0.5% levy on levied to us by Welsh Government for the apprenticeship schemes. So we've paid 1.6 million into that since 2017. Since 2020, CAVOC, we've had a relationship with CAVOC. They're our educational provider. So I think it's around about 12.5k per person they claim back for us, and they claim that back from Welsh Government, take their fees and give us the rest. So we move into page 14 then. Down through page 14, you'll come to the second table at the bottom there. So from 2020 to 24-25, on the left, you'll see how much we've paid in on the levy. Probably averages out about 210, 215. And then on the right then is sort of the income we've generated. It's in red, but it's income we've generated. So the money we've had back from CAVOC. So we generated 1.1 million. Now it's difficult. It's income coming in, but actually when you offset against that, what we pay out, you're thereabouts. We recover the money. But if you think in terms of generating money for the service, we've got to pay that 0.5%. So that's a budget line that's got to be paid. You know, what I'd like to do in the future, and there's a paper coming through a different means, and might be an update in the future people committee meeting, is to reinvest some of that money into training, because exponentially the administration of all these apprentices is grown quite extensively. So there'll be a paper forthcoming where we look to reinvest some of that perceived income that we're generating. Any questions before I move on the apprenticeship scheme or anything like that? Okay, thank you. So page 15, just talk through some of the highlights, section 2.3 on incident command. Level 1, 90% pass rate, so that's your supervisory officers, your JO, junior officers, crew managers, watch managers, and 100% pass and reassessment. Level 2, and I know you'll know this, Chair, that's where historically we've had our highest failure rate, because it's the biggest jump in terms of command. You're going from a very task operationally focused command-led approach to more of a technical approach with your command. So your vision increases, your decision-making increases, and your spans to control on ranges increases. So it's a big learning step up as well for our candidates. We redesigned and revamped that course over the last 12 months. And actually, if you look at the data there now, 19 attended, 14 passed, which is higher than usual. But actually 100% were reassessed and passed on reassessments. We've got one candidate who's submitted an appeal, and that appeal is ongoing. They're actually going to go and do their level 2 with Mid and Western North Wales. We've got reciprocal arrangements where we can push candidates out if they feel that they want to be assessed, you know, somewhere else. We can do that. Level 3 group managers, 83% pass rate on that. And then moving down towards the bottom of page 15, we've got the requalification program. This is just to give an indication. The bulk of our work in incident command is in the level 1, you know, it's the initial courses and then the reassessment. So 131 assessments is not an insignificant number to date this year. So there's a tremendous amount of work there. But actually, what they have done down in Cardiff Gate, and if you haven't been down there, we can take you down there and show you. Is it the vision, VXR, the investment in technology that is really making a difference? It's almost like a virtual reality without wearing the headsets, commands set up. Any questions on command?
A really quick one, Brian. Yeah. On the requalification program now, we moved to a 2-year cycle.
We are, yeah. Right. Yeah, so it's not in the paper. It should have been looked forward, but the 2-year cycle is something I've asked. It's in line with National Operational Guidance. for context, because context is important. Previously, we extended that out to 4 years because we had a comprehensive CPD program and because the amount of workload involved in a 2-year recall. We need to move back to 2 years because we want 1 year of CPD and then 1 year of recall, because 4 years is too long, in my opinion, before we get people in for them to be certified. So we're realigning completely with long. So from the financial year next year, or from next year's training planning perspective, everything's cycled into a 2-year requalification process period there.
Okay, so on the, did that answer your question?
Thank you.
On the requalification, I mean, it's great to see 100% pass rate. I'm going to see many exams where you get 100% pass rates. I just wonder, so what if someone fails this requalification? That has quite an impact, doesn't it? And is there luck since almost not fail people because of the impact it has? Because I just think, 131 people and 100% pass rate. We're either not testing them hard enough, or I don't know.
Or it's exceptional training.
Yeah, or it's exceptional training, which I can accept, but I just wonder about
No, it's
pass rates.
through the conversations we've had, these are the most important qualifications really, because this is about fireground safety on the incident ground. There's nothing more important than that. It is an upward trajectory in terms of the pass rate. Now, it wasn't that long ago we were going to take it out of the promotion process, and we did, and it's gone back in. It's going to be going back in now because it's critically important and it's part of your development before you're ready for the they're not afraid to fail people in the past. In fact, we've had a lot of negative feedback, and we've had complaints put in the past where we have failed people and they feel that they've unjustly failed. But it's the internal quality assurance, and actually EQA is really rigorous. We've just recently been through Skills for Justice. They're really happy with the product and content.
Okay.
So I'm happy with the IQA and EQA around it. So that, no, they're not afraid to fail people.
It's just that if there was ever something goes wrong on an incident ground, they will look at this and they will really unpack
Absolutely.
this data to make sure that our qualification and requalification incident command is really where it should be.
I mean, there was a mindset, to be fair, Chair, within some quarters that it shouldn't be pass or fail, especially when you get to level 2 and level 3. So what happens if someone fails? They get an extensive PDP and personal development plan, which number of vault station exercises mentored by what we can class as a good incident commander, and then they're when they're ready to be reassessed, they're reassessed. We've had people in the past, Chris, you'll know this, that took 6 or 7 attempts to get through a level 2.
Which means that they're likely to be marginal. Okay.
No, good question, thank you. So then we're moving down to page 16 on the back. Just talk a little bit about 2.4, operational development review team. So there are facilitators for debriefs in the service, and we do a number of debriefs, critical incidents, structured incidents, multi-agency debriefs. They're trained, or those our team are trained by the Met Police National Debrief course. So that's what they do. It should have been a look forward really. So I'm giving you a little look forward with our team now. We've obviously working our way through. Mike Evans is working for me full time on the operational effectiveness report from the Chief Fire and Rescue Advisor and Inspector. So he's already making good progress now. There's a recommendation within there to really completely overhaul how we do operational assurance. So I imagine in future reports, operational development review team will be subsumed by the new ops assurance team. So that will definitely change. So what that looks like at the moment, we don't know, but there'll be major structural changes to how we do operational assurance. So it's in there today because they're a good bunch down there to do our debriefs. But the next iterations of these reports, the ops assurance piece will change. So just a little look forward there.
Okay, yeah, I'm aware that this is all going to change. There's currently, so do I now do the debriefs after training?
Yeah, any debrief that's required. Obviously,
incident debriefs, usually the request of the incident commander, they're not like a whole debrief. As opposed to there's a 6-month bar.
Yeah.
What calls the debrief?
So what will happen with the debrief process is any fires of significance like that, ODOT will coordinate that. So
So it's mandatory.
it's mandatory, yeah. So what you do is an O25A, which is a debrief form. You feedback what, in your opinion, and from your perspective, what went well at the incident, what didn't go well, what organizational, operational learning can we take from this? And they capture all that then, and then they'll analyze that detail, that data, and then there's a number of actions. They need to then progress it to a structured debrief because there's major organizational learning. So the applicant, anyone that I attended recently, I've had the form through for that. I'll sit on the structured debrief for that because it was a lot of learning, really good fire incident ground procedures, but around welfare of our staff and that incident threw up. So that's standard for us, standard practice. Yeah, an O25A will be generated, sent out, and then a structured debrief follow.
So I mean, there's opportunities to make this much more technological. So if we had drones, we could then use the drone footage to do a thing called, I used to know it as STEP, sequential time event plotting. So you have something with a known time frame,
Yeah,
and then you ask people what they did, and quite often you can find that what they thought they did doesn't marry up with what actually happened.
yeah.
So there's a way of using data in a different way to identify people's actions.
Yeah.
Because they'll often tell you the whole crew went in through
Yeah.
the first floor ladder into the window. And then you've got some video somewhere which says, oh, only one person went in, the other person stayed on the ladder.
It's a really good observation.
People do believe what they're saying. It's just that sometimes the evidence shows different.
Well, actually, when you talk about that there, that, and you're absolutely right, because when we do the incident command assessments, they're recorded. And when you do your structured debrief at the end, professional discussion, the amount of times that the individual who was in the hot seat says that they did something, and you play it back to them. I can't remember. They thought they did it and they didn't.
Because we've got rich seams of data.
Yeah.
Which if you were looking at what they say about their training every day, so there's training data available from the station, there's training data available from the training centre.
Yeah.
There will be the information in their performance reviews, and there'll be their operational performance. If you put all that together, you then get a much richer picture about individual and team performance. I guess it's whether we're tapping into it in the way that we could and should.
So that's what the new ops assurance piece is going to look at, because there's pieces of the jigsaw available to us. And again, let me give an example. We got really good FI reports. We could be learning about fire behavior just looking at the photographs and the timing, the sequence of events. That information is already available to us, but we're not triangulating all this data that's coming in. So the new ops assurance piece will pick that up.
Yeah, that's what we need to be looking at, as many streams of information that add to the accuracy of what we've got.
Yeah, I was just going to, you mentioned drone, that's all just be cited. We are in the process of introducing drones soon.
Because I think we'll be one of the last brigades to do so, won't we?
Oh, tell me. On 3 attempts, I tried to bring drones.
Way off.
We're moving with pace on.
I've got 3 reports coming in for drones over the years.
I mean, something like flooding, drones are really useful because you get the ground that has to be covered so vast. You have multiple polygons, and you get a drone up, you can access all this stuff.
The phrase I use, drones isn't going to put us at the cutting edge of the UK fire services. It's just going to bring us up to a place where we'll be with everyone else.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So moving down into, just very briefly, page 17. So a little bit around, very timely actually, class 2 water rescue training 2.5. When they've done some recent exercises in the dark, first time they've done it, they walk through the ground, all the lights on, and then they switch all the lights off, and then you've got a match incident. And honestly, when you've got sensory overload, all your senses working, then all of a sudden one of your major senses shut down. So that's the sort of training they've introduced to the Whitewater Rafting Centre, and it does make a big difference in terms of realistic training. So really good feedback on that.
Great facility, Ellen.
Fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah, really, really good. Actually, just Megan, can you make sure that you mentioned that bit we mentioned about the drones? Can you make sure that's minuted?
Yes.
Yeah, on that evidence thing. Okay.
And the same for 2.6, just moving around into page 18, driver training, section 19. We haven't implemented section 19 in the UK yet, but we're getting ahead of the curve. It's going to increase the amount of time we've got to spend, point of contact time we've got to spend, pretty much double for our drivers. But again, what we've done to get ahead of that risk, we've introduced nighttime driver training for people then that have just become really qualified LGV drivers. You would think it would be a logical thing to do in any case, but it's just something that all fire services are starting to introduce. A bit about fire trauma, so we'll move it down then on fire trauma. Lots of good progress there in terms of the kit and equipment we got, which we started bringing in when we did the MTA work and Isla work was involved in a number of years ago. So it's nice to see that in the service. Actually, our crews make a difference on a daily basis to medical calls, either assisting the ambulance service or on an ad hoc basis. 2.8, bottom of page 19. Really, really happy with the investment that we've put into the service there. We've got an interim decontamination shelter going in there. It's nearly built now, so that will make our firefighting a lot safer when it comes to managing contaminants. It's an interim structure. It's costing a fair amount of money. And we're hoping then that we'll have by 2027 a permanent structure down there where we'll be managing fire effluents. Is that how you pronounce it? Bad for me, but for fire effluents. So we'll be managing that in a better way in Cardiff Gate. And of course, Chris and Chris's team are leading on the wider contamination work service. Page 22, 23. So overall course metrics, we talked in the previous, didn't we, about the relationship between efficiency and effectiveness, and that's in terms of the amount of spaces provided to ops for the staff to come in and the amount of spaces taken up. So we've seen a 3% increase in efficiency this year, from 79% to 88%. It could be that we got more firefighters on pumps and it's easier then to release staff. But again, it's never going to be 100%. 100% courses available, 100% occupancy. We'd like it to be, and we should, aspire to be 100%. And ultimately, when you think half of our workforce are on their days off, why wouldn't you bring people in to get people on courses? It's the sort of thinking we're going to need to do in the future, because then we'll have 100% attendance at every single course, notwithstanding obviously last minute sickness and the likes. So there's a table there which talks you through the amount of courses provided, the amount of spaces available, and how many passed and failed. But yeah, the point of that there for Neil is just to show that relationship between efficiency and effectiveness, which is very dependent on being able to release staff. It is in there. And then I look forward then, just to finish off my part of the report, hand over to people services. So the look forward then is the thematic review, operational training, a significant work stream, particularly the unconstrained analysis. And we've got an update on all the thematic reviews that sit with me and the one that sits with Dean coming to the Board of Commissioners next month. So we'll have a comprehensive update there. And then, of course, thereafter, they fall in with the service information boards. Just so you're all aware now, because our staff talk about communication and the perceived lack of communication on some of these key work streams. Like I did with the operational effectiveness, every time my team come in and do an update, well, it be the Board of Commissioners or SIB, the day after, or as soon as they can thereafter, they're going to be doing, like you've all dialed in before, mid-leader briefing day, the SMs, GMs online. So everyone can dial in from where they are, and that's corporate staff, so uniform staff, to bring them up to speed with where we are with all the thematic reviews. So that will be up, they'll be updated every time we do a significant report to the Board of Commissioners or SIB. We talked about the decontamination facility at the Real Fire Training Facility. Dan Stevens' report, Ops Effectiveness, is going to really change what we do in training. Really impressed by the work that Mike Evans is already producing there with a small team like Justin Hillier and the likes, and Al Evans in training. It's when we get this right and taking Dan's report in that spirit, we will have a suite of tactical options and fireground options that are going to exponentially increase our effectiveness on the incident ground, on our safety on the incident ground, underpinned by really good training. We've got a professor from the Dutch Fire Service coming in to do presentation or online presentation for us in January. And then when we buy water mapping rigs, we've got the Americans coming across to do some training for our crews in the future. So in terms of a look forward, that doesn't really capture the tremendous amount of impact this is going to have on our operational training and capacity and our subsequent response on the incident. I'm really excited by it. It is a generational change in terms of what we're able to do here, and it will make a big difference. And what I intend to do, Chair, is I think it'd be really good when we have those come to fruition, is to get in with the commissioners and give you a really comprehensive update just on that one subject alone, because it will be, it's a generational change really. So it requires that level of reverence, I guess. And then last one, the delivery of development of high-rise training is carrying on at Brackenhall House. And what's not in there, the one from me, I've given the green light to increase the whole time course to 14 weeks. We're going to front load behavioural training and all the supplementary skills training. So the training team have been asked, and if they haven't already done it, they soon will be linking in with people services to map out that week of training. And of course, then it's how we can do that for our own call. And then when we get corporate staff joining the service, we can put them onto those courses and they can sit in with the whole training for others to do that. So that was it from me, Chair, in terms of a whistle stop tour through Neil's training update.
Serena, over to you.
Thank you very much. So for the learning and development update for 2023 to 24, what we've got here is just an overview of all the different aspects that the team actually deliver. It's been the first year that we've quite proudly been able to launch our Pathways programmes. We'll talk about that in more detail in a second. But within it, we've run a range of masterclasses. We've sort of revamped the personal reviews and done a number of other things. So if we start with personal reviews, this was the second full year of personal reviews in the service. And in this year, we were pleased to say that Joint Fire Control joined the process with us. And throughout that year, we've been able to continue to train and upskill people in certain areas. We know that new line managers come on board, so we've had to train them as well. The completion rates for the first part of the review, which you'll see on page 25, for 23-24, the main review was 67.59%. That's for the whole organisation and fire control. And then in the part year cycle, where there's a follow-on discussion, the service achieved 51.78%. What we are looking for, I know we talked previously about what are the targets and what are we trying to head towards. Well, 100%. Of course, we want 100%, same as what Neil was saying. Brian was saying earlier.
You rehearsed that one too much there, didn't you?
I know, it all went wrong, didn't it? So from that basis, we're trying to head towards that way. We are very aware of, we've got different members of staff, different access to IT systems, different shift systems going on. So what we're going to be continuing to do is find out how we can continue to grow that and embed it in certain pockets of the organisation and to support others to do that. What we have then underneath on page 25, what that shows is in year one, we achieved 74%. So that was the big launch. Year two, 62%. And then year three, which we've just completed, 68%. So what we were quite pleased about that is that we're not dropping off year by year, which is something that you may expect with one of these processes. But we've actually maintained and actually built further then on 2023 to 24. And what we need to do now is think about how do we get that even further higher for the next remaining years.
My understanding was that 24-25, the year in date, we're sort of 17, less than 20%.
We are low, yes. And so there's a piece of work that'll be beginning in January to continue to drive that up. They've already scoped out what that will look like. I think that part of it is to do with the fact that we used to send scorecards around to the senior team on a regular basis, and that kind of put it on the radar. Now that data has been moved into BMIS, unless you go looking for it, you don't necessarily always see where you are in that. So it may be that we want to do a bit more of that for as we go forward, so that people can see it in a glance in an email. Right, my department, I can speak to my managers and start to get them to focus in a little bit more on it.
Maybe it's partly maybe a bit of a rough year, but I suppose my broader point would be, and at the end, when we come to the end of it, this report is generally too late. It's 8 months after the end of the year, and I could have taken from that thinking actually personal reviews, they're okay, but actually the in-year metric, 8 months in, is that we're at 17 or 18%. So I think there's a thing going forward that, you know, it's a review. And we can't take too much comfort from a backward-looking review that's 8 months ago, when we have quite a lot of water under the bridge in the last eight months. But yeah, I mean, this was put in train in a work program a while ago, so we'll get to the end of it and look at the value of annual reviews as opposed to structuring them part annual review, part full review. And then we can look at what we intended to do and what the actuals are. Okay, right, thank you.
Great. So if we go then on to page 6, what that shows is the completion rates for departments year by year. Is one thing that we were asked to put an addition in. And what this actually shows that there are some departments perhaps have slipped backwards over that time. It's not surprising some of those teams because they may have been having some staffing issues with management and also sickness and things like that. So for example, health and safety department, some of the on-call ops support, and it's not surprising we've had quite a change around at the senior leadership team level. So that may well be the driving force around that. But we have actually had quite a number of departments that have actually increased year on year. So those that sort of maybe have struggled in their first couple of years, it was great to see fleet and engineering really getting up there, because at the end of the day, they're not sitting in an office, they are working in a workshop. So to get them off to have these reviews was slightly more challenging. We see ICT getting up there, joint controls increasing, risk reduction, and training as well. So really good. So Brian's department's obviously doing very well this year.
I mean, this is interesting as well. Percentages can sometimes be misleading. If you look at the on-call and the whole time, that accounts for the significant proportion of the workforce, which the on-call are at 33%, if I read that right. Yeah, on-call at 33%. And then disappointingly, we got senior leadership team down there on 0. And then, and health and safety. I mean, health and safety is risk critical, and they would be one of the first things, well, not one of the first things, they would look at, if there was an investigation, they'd look at people's completion of these things, and had they had their annual objectives, had they had their training, all the rest of it, and they're not completing their own. I gather that's because there's been turbulence in the team, but we need to get this back online. And then the senior leadership team, I mean, I'm looking around the room, what's happening there? I misread this, is it not 0%?
No, it isn't. I think so this PR covers the year April to next March.
Yeah.
So I think we need to reset as a senior leadership team with Finn, the new chief. So,
The previous performance shows 0% in
So it's the first column of each one is the main review, and the second column is the follow-up conversation. So senior leadership team year 1 was 100%, then it was 83%, and now it's 31%.
Okay. Right.
So moving on to energy and engagement, with everything that's been going on for the service, what was interesting is that the energy levels of the service have actually risen over the last 12 months from 7.4 to 7.9%. And we're still remaining stable on engagement at 7.9% as well. I mean, there's still room for improvement, but considering what we've been through as a service and everything that's been happening in the press, the cultural review, I think that's really positive to know that the staff here still feel like they want to come to work, still feel like they're engaged. Granted, it's not everybody at that level, but it's quite a high proportion. So it's about how do we harness that now and move that forward to.
This would have been, the engagement rating and the energy levels would have only have gone up till March this year.
March, yes.
So, not changed around March. So we might see.
Yeah, might see something different next year. Absolutely.
And it's a rating of 0 to 10.
Yes.
It is drastic. Yeah.
So,
It's not a full picture then, is it?
sorry.
It's not a full picture, is it? So we're taking that from PRs. It's only the proportion of people that are engaged in the PRs
Yes.
that we're monitoring. So it's not a service
Right.
picture.
Yeah,
Am I right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So the people who are keen will have filled it in, and they'll have had higher energy because they're keen. Can I extrapolate that?
Maybe. I think it's probably slightly different to. So, for example, if we were talking about a survey, I think we could maybe align that. So, for example, I'm engaged, I'm going to complete the survey, therefore this is what I'm feeling. We might get results on that side. Not everybody who's doing a PR is necessarily engaged in doing their PR. Sometimes it's because their managers have told them that they have to,
Yeah.
or because my department or the service have told them that they have to. So I think there's something in between. So I wouldn't necessarily class it in the same category as potentially when we're putting surveys out there, because we do find that it's the more engaged, isn't it, that complete surveys. But with PRs, it'll be a range of people, and some people want them as well. So that's really important. So
No, good, good. I appreciate that. It's good stuff.
So moving on, referrals have, in terms of the completion rate of PRs have increased. What we're finding is referrals have decreased. That's a good thing though, because it means that people should be having more regular conversations. When we first launched PRs, what we found is that we had quite a high level in year one, despite managers saying to us, we know everything, everybody's great, everybody's wonderful. And we had over 110 referrals in that first particular year. So the fact that that's been brought down, I think is a positive thing. And there's also other mechanisms from a wellbeing perspective that's going on for people to surveillance. And then the final bit for personal review is about the performance grid assessment rating. So 97% of all of our staff have a rating of achieving expectations or above. So that's doing the job well, and with the right values and behaviours or above. So that means we have around about 3% that potentially bow down beneath that. And we don't want that figure to be huge, because what that means is those are the ones with that aren't displaying the best behaviours, that aren't displaying the best values. So we know we'd need to obviously align that against what we're seeing in service with disciplinaries and other things like that. However, what that does show this year as well is that people are moving far more towards what we would call the top right of the 9-box grid, which means that there has been development or an advancement for quite a number of people over the last year. We'd hope to continue to see that as we move forward. What we might feel though is that when we have new starters, we might find that there's more on achieving expectations. So next year might be slightly different because we've had more people through the doors in the last 12 months. So the future for PRs, we did a survey and actually looked at what do people want. Now they've been running for a couple of years, and there was some consultation and engagement around that. And what we've done is we've tweaked the system on the basis of it. We've also removed the second follow-up conversation. So there's just one main conversation in the year now. And within that, it means that people feel that they're more supported around what they're filling in, how they're using the system, and what they're using it for. So that's the personal review element. Questions? Can we move on? No?
Yeah.
Lovely. So starting then at induction level, in terms of, we're talking about our life cycle training, learning and development deal with corporate inductions, training with new recruits. And we've actually done over 30 new or corporate employees have been welcomed to the organisation this year alone. As we've talked about previously, there is some work afoot to actually pull all the induction together and make it more tailor-made. We have discussed that dependent on sometimes your line manager or where you start an organisation, you may have a very different experience. You're underway and putting together a booklet, which means that everybody's getting the same information. The line manager works with you to complete it. It gives the line manager the opportunity then to have space away when you've got an inductee by saying, do this e-learning or read these pages here, and then we'll meet back up afterwards. And it also supports the employee to know that they've got something that they can be doing if there's periods of downtime. So that's something that will be coming for 2024 to 25. And moving on then into pathways, 2023 to 24 saw the launch of a number of the pathways programmes, leading yourself, leading others, and leading the function. With leading the service is actually launching in January 2025, and that's the last pass of the jigsaw then. That will be done, and that's the Pioneer programme. So for leading yourself, over this particular year, we've had 41 delegates. So these are entry-level employees who may want to come on learning about resilience, how to prioritise, decision-making, all those sorts of little things. And they can build on that then with masterclasses as they move through with their personal reviews. In terms of leading others, which is our supervisory level, we had 113 people, all courses were maxed out last year, just a couple of spots here and there. And we've had some really good feedback. So I think initially people were a bit sceptical about learning, and they were a bit resistant to the work that was actually aligned against it. Some are slightly academic, some more kind of practical. But I think at the end of the 113 individuals progressing through, the surveys that we've had back and the feedback that we've been getting have been extremely positive. And quite a few people are coming forward now saying they'd like to be an advocate for these programmes moving forward. They'd be happy to be videoed for a bit of PR, not personal reviews, but recognition on that side. So really good. What we have seen though is, as we outline in the programme, is a decision was made earlier this year to not make training part of the recruitment or promotional process. So since that decision was made, we have seen a 73% drop off month by month of people coming forward to take part in the programmes. And that's obviously something we need to look at as we move forward. And I think there's discussions in place at present at the top table around that.
That seems on the face of it, according to the paragraph at the bottom of page 32, a bad decision made in the year. Was it, in terms of that decision being made, was any assessment made of the impact? Because we've got an impact here, or was it just made on the hoof?
I wasn't part of the discussions around that particular conversation. I think it was actually something that the previous chief decided would be beneficial, and therefore I think most of us found out about it from routine notice.
Right, okay. So, a minute this, so the no impact, no assessment was made on the impact of that decision. Okay, thanks.
Okay, and then moving on to leading the function. So this is where for our middle managers now, we are running an ILM 5 based at the University of South Wales. And over the last year, we've had 31 delegates through. Really enjoyed the training. Again, some online as well as face-to-face, so a bit of a blended approach. And during that time, again, as we've seen with the other programme, as we did not have to include that as part of the promotional process, slightly more wearing at middle manager level, we've now seen a decline of 91% in that particular area. So something to work on for the future. However, again, we've had some really good feedback from people around the programme, what it's made them think about afterwards, and the kind of reflective practice for leadership and what they're doing. And there are aspects around there in terms of culture, leadership and behaviours. So that's really helped people move forward. And then the final programme then, as we said, is launching in January. It's currently underway. It'll be launched by the Chiefs in Wales, is the Pioneer programme. And this is the strategic level programme, which ran in 2019, was a huge success at that time. And we're looking to adopt a very similar format this time around with some new guest speakers and working with others across Wales to be able to deliver that strategic leadership training. And that will be pitched then at an ILM 7. So over the year, in terms of leadership training, we've seen a huge increase and uplift, rising from 29% in 21-22 to 55 from 55 to 89.7% uplift over that time. So the team actually spent a lot of time creating a lot of these programs. So that's why you can see the increase. So now we're running them, we're getting up towards more capacity. And what's really great is we're seeing, prior to it being removed from the promotional process, we were seeing programs mapped out and maxed out to the hilt, and we were able to then forecast how many we needed over future years. Anything on that before we move on? So next then, masterclasses. This is to support individuals with a range of masterclasses that we run in service, either with subject matter experts or also from external partners and training agencies across South Wales. So we have all sorts of things from half a day to 1 day, 2 day, around emotional intelligence, coaching and mentoring, mental health, project management, all sorts of different things. And what should be happening is when people have their personal reviews, this is their bespoke bit where they can decide, this is what I need support in, this is the role I'm doing next, and they can book onto these masterclasses with their line manager's approval to then develop them even further. So these are then filling in some of the gaps for individuals across the service. We also have the Additional Learning Fund, which we had 50 individuals took up that opportunity last year. So this is everything from doing professional qualifications. So you could be doing your CIPD, your CIPP, or you could be going to conferences, seminars, all sorts of different things. And this is in place and sits with a board that allows individuals then the opportunity to submit and support a range of different things that sits outside of their normal training and development. So in addition to those aspects, we've actually run a number of different things across the service. DICE training, so there's been EDI training created and put firstly onto our eHub, which I'll talk about in a second, but also then we've been doing bespoke training. For example, we've met with Cardiff Gate, who wanted more support about how to deal with neurodiversity when supporting their trainers, helping new recruits and things like that. So we've been down there, put on a bespoke session to talk about how do you make reasonable adjustments in a training setting? How do you do all of that? And that went down really, really well. And we've rolled that out since elsewhere. So that's something that we're going to continue to do and have a look at how we can expand those areas to link in with our equality and diversity groups. We also ran a Hydra 10K event around culture, and there's another one coming very soon. And so that's one to watch out for. There was 60 individuals down at Cardiff Gate, and we had a specialist Hydra come in to actually have a look at a range of topics. And I think what we did from that particular session is we've learnt a number of lessons about how to run it, what sort of questions we should be asking, who should be at those events. So that's something that we've put into the planning now with Dominic and his team moving forward.
So I'm pretty certain it's the same person, Jonathan Craig. So he used to do a thing called Minerva, which was internet command, which I remember doing with him in 1993.
Yeah, so
he's been,
Jonathan started in that space, decision making. I think he started in the police. He brought
Yeah,
that
he
into
did.
the fire service, and now they are looking with the University of South Wales, which is where they are based, to develop those areas. So there is the Hydra piece, which is the exercise bit that develops your decision making, and then there is the 10K volts debriefing piece, which is all around understanding the decision making and rationale process. So they're doing that now for culture as well as the incident command side. The piece that we've discussed there is around the debriefing bit, so it gets us sentiment analysis and a better understanding of our staff, but also involved in the development of their Hydra exercise in an all Wales approach. So they are developing a culture exercise that they want to run out across the UK with NCC that enables staff to work their decision making around cultural issues and behavioural pieces. So we've been working with them on that side of it as well. So there is two elements to the
Great.
piece that he does.
well, he's been around such a long time. He's got so much credibility, and it's located at South Wales University. Was it University of South Wales? I don't know.
University.
That's Cardiff. No, Swansea. It's the old Poly.
Yes,
The old Poly. So I say that because I went to University of Wales. Anglia College. Right. Anyway, I'm glad we should be all over this.
Yeah.
This is, really useful stuff. So I'm pretty interested in the Hydra part. I think that's really, really good. It's in the absence of other stuff. And is he still working with, because he used to be based at the Met Police. So is he still linking into incident command, or is that
Yeah, so I believe they run they run both
right?
elements still. He does it free for public sector
It'd be
organisations.
useful if you had a look at our incident command training and say, because he used those the simulations, the digital simulations, and he might if you just got an extra pair of eyes on it, because he does know what his stuff is. So if you checked over ours and he said, yeah, ours is pretty good, then that's another validation, isn't it? Which is it's us. Okay.
So other things happening this year, we've launched our new eHub platform. So that's the learning management system for all soft skills and mandatory training for everybody in the organisation. And within there, we can put mandatory modules like our inclusive language and conscious bias, inclusive leadership, but we've also been able to work with partners within the organisation, such as our safeguarding leads, people like that, to create bespoke packages then that we can roll out on the system. So it's fairly new for us, so we're still expanding it and working out what it can do. We have a number of packages. So one thing we'll be looking at, and we've spoken to some of Dominic's team recently as well, is around how do we maybe launch some extra bits around leadership and other topics to kind of expand what we have as an offering as a service. So that will continue. But what's been great about that is we can now start reporting on training, whereas in the past it was a bit more ad hoc and going into lots of different systems. Also ran a number of middle manager events, and the learning development team has brought together the middle managers, lots of different things from leadership to mental health and engagement. And this is something now that the transformation team are now working with and putting them in on a more regular basis. So that's something that will be happening over each quarter, I believe, Dominic, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
As we move forward. So hopefully that'll be another great way for people to come together and to facilitate extra learning. So Together with Partners Training Days, the number of people that receive training has risen year on year by 55.8%. And that just goes to show that when we moved, first of all, from training in 2019 to people services, there was almost nothing built. We didn't have PRs, we didn't have any masterclasses, we didn't have pathways, we didn't have the additional learning fund in the format that it is in the moment. So what we would say is over the last 4 years, we've built everything ground up. And we're now at a stage where we've delivered, come January, the strategic programme. Once that's all embedded, we can now look at what's the next thing: talent management, succession planning, what additional training can we do? So we've just hit probably for us, our foundation level of everything we need to do. So we're really looking forward now to get stuck into some additional work as well. So finally, at the end, there's a couple of challenges that have been outlined. One is for the training department. So Brian, I don't know if you've got anything there around the vacant instructor post. I think Neil's put a section in around that.
Or just what's in there. It's again, there'll be a paper coming through the internal governance structure to look at maybe repurposing positions from across the organisation.
Yes, we've looked at this in terms of efficiencies as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other aspects of things we've already discussed around the drop off of leadership training, since obviously it's removed from the promotional processes. And one other thing we might need to just review, and it may be that we end up in the same place, is the fact that we don't currently pay uniformed colleagues at firefighter to watch manager level to attend masterclasses. So we're going to try and think outside the box, lunch and learn things you can dial into. But in addition to that, is that something that we want to tweak for maybe specific programmes that we want them to train in? But obviously that comes at a cost to the service.
So can they not, I mean, when I was no, it was a long time ago. I used to volunteer for this stuff because it was going to add to you. You were getting this as a benefit to enhance your career, and you'd come up on your days off and you'd do stuff. This is long before remote distance learning. So I think there's a partial element of a dependency culture which goes back to, I'm not saying that we don't give people all their kit when they join, but with firefighters, we give them everything except underpants, which means that there's a belief that you don't have to do anything unless it's provided. And I think there's at some point that relationship needs to change between responsibility of the individual to seek and search for them, as well as us to provide and to deliver. And I think that's where that whole responsibility thing is about, which is why we've got to teach people some stuff around behaviours as well, because I'm pretty certain they would say in a given set of circumstances, you wouldn't say that to your partner or to your mother or to your child, but it's okay to say it at work. So I just wonder where people abrogate their responsibility for some things like this. Equally, I suppose, is there any way that we could give compensatory time? So if someone comes, when the masterclass is running, they come in and they spend that day, and then they get a day in compensatory lieu at work, so that as opposed to being paid to come in, because I think I just think paying people to get promoted is I think there's one thing about giving them the time back. I think that paying people is, for me personally, I mean, I'm happy to have a wider discussion on it, but I think there is a thing about the individual responsibility in the moral contract with the employee.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. So I'm just going to flag that Chief Monaghan has asked for a review of our promotion processes. So it's something perhaps we could pick up as part of that project. We will be going out to engage staff, and we will be asking those questions around how does the pathways, for example, link into a promotion process. It was linked before, we took it away. Should we reintroduce it? So that there's a number of things that we could look at as part of that piece.
Okay. Good. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you very much.
I mean, I think that paragraph 4.2 is really damning in terms of the drop off on the leadership level, percent drop off the middle managers. In the core to what you do later. So in general, no, so I think speak to Brian. I'm slightly confused because how do you sit in people services and Neil sits in training, but you're both competing for the time of firefighters by running programs and courses. So how does that work? Does it work really well?
We've tried to work together to make sure that it does. And I think the key people here that are involved is central staffing. They do a fantastic job at trying to facilitate everything that we all need, because sometimes it's not just us. There might be other people. That's right, yeah. They have protocols of how many are allowed off each individual day, and they work their magic to be able to do that and facilitate so that we've all got courses booked as much as we can. So I think without them, we would be really, really struggling.
So
So
do
they play a
you
good part.
use dynamic mobilising at all in terms of our slack periods of operational activity where we could release more people?
Not at the moment, but we got that tool coming in.
So this spreadsheet, I do start off with I hate spreadsheets, but anyway. So looking at appendix 3, who does that belong to? Is that Neil? Neil?
That's what
So I went through a number of these things, and I got to the bottom of auxiliary team leader incident command. If you look across that line, it's on the page 50 of the bundle. It's 10 people were 10 places, 13 people attended, 4 people failed, yet the pass rate is 30.8%.
that should be that's the failure rate.
It's a failure rate. So if that's a failure rate, it's under the pass rate.
Yeah, they just
Isn't it?
they got it wrong there. It's 30% for failings, 30% failure.
Yeah.
Are you right? 70% pass,
Yeah.
30% fail.
And so let me go back to some of these things sound 100% all the way along. Page 40, 100%.
A lot of them are there's no summative assessment or it's just
So the 100% pass rate isn't a 100% pass rate, because there's no assessment.
they're just attending. Yeah,
Right, so because otherwise it gives, as I'm always looking in, I think everyone here has been assessed because it's 100%. It's not, it's a tick box that's generated a misleading thing. And also when it comes to LGB, the reassessment, that's 98% for a lot of people doing it. Is that linked to pay by any chance?
No.
But it means that they wouldn't be able to drive a fire engine if they failed it. So there's a real incentive to want to pass. Plus, they should be much more experienced because they've been driving and everything.
yeah, that's right.
Any of these linked to pay?
No, we don't have any skill thing. USAR is the only team, but that's a natural difference. That's if you get a second contract.
So when we've talked about efficiency, about the number of courses, the number of people, some of these things seem to indicate that the courses are reasonably attended.
It's getting better. So it's gone from 79% to 82%, which means there's an 80% opportunity to improve that relationship between efficiency and effectiveness.
And there are ways to look at releasing people. That, if we're through at 5, and you can throw at 4. The second part, you can drop people off. Because I think sometimes we hold on to holy grails too much. There are ways that we should be looking at this, particularly when it comes to things like mobilising.
So that we will with the dynamic response, dynamic coverage tool. We've all had a see it in action. There's going to be an investment into that, and actually, in terms of generating data and then having predictive analytics, it's going to really change for us.
Because what it does is it gives you options,
Yeah,
where you can make decisions based on the data. Okay, all right. So, in general terms, thank you for the report. There's a lot from both sides of it, but generally, it's too late. It's nearly December, and the end period for this was presuming 31st of March. So here we are, nearly 8 months down the line. It gives an impression of you could believe it's all true, but you could believe this is the current trend, and actually the actual trend is different in some of these aspects. So I think there should be a greater, it should be within 10 weeks, 2 months, a couple of months to make it meaningful. it should also contain a forward review, so that the forward review sits in with what the annual plan is going forward, so that the thing starts to overlap. Otherwise, we're just too far off the pace on this. Bear in mind, this and another review are a large chunk of today's meeting, and they're quite well out of date. Okay.
That's what I think.
I mean, if you don't agree, push back.
I think it's a lot way through the year. I agree with what you said earlier about in terms of coming in for these maybe twice a year or even,
Yeah,
that would probably be better.
yeah, we should look at it.
And I think we used to come in a little bit early. I'm not sure if it's because of everything that's happened this year that's knocked on. Because I know, especially with PRs, we used to come in within the first 8 weeks, wasn't it, Al? And deliver the feedback around that. Because that would almost inform what we were going to do then over the next 10 months. So maybe that we're in those circumstances this year, I'm not sure. But,
Well, if you say 8 weeks, well, let's make it 8 weeks then. Let's have it. Yeah. Good. Okay, then moving on to annual review. Recruitment.
That's me again.
Right, okay.
So apologies from Hannah Goodchild. She's actually sat on the same panel as Neil. So So this is just the 2023-2024 recruitment overview and talks around the generation of new ideas and things that the service have actually done over that last 12 months. There's been some quite senior appointments during that time as well, not so much the chief because that will fall into next year's category. We have Dominic here, Director of Strategic Change and Transformation, along with that project management team. And what we do know is that that will help us with what they're doing at the moment, springboard into the next section for recruitment as well, under the Step Forward programme. So in terms of the general practice updates, which are from page 52 onwards, we've actually started to have a look at the recruitment market and best practice. And we did go through a little period where there was quite a dip in applications for certain aspects. That was probably around about 18 months ago. It's got slightly better since then. But what we've actually done is we've broadened out to be able to meet the needs of a range of different levels in the organisation and also across the different types of roles that we're recruiting for. So some of these included the introduction of using specialist agencies, such as that we've used this year for the Chief Fire Officer, new stakeholder panels in those actual recruitment processes for senior level recruitment. We've also reintroduced HR representation on all recruitment panels, and that's at all levels throughout the organisation. And one of the big developments, which we'll come on to shortly, will be about the introduction of People XD, the recruitment platform. So that's been a work in progress for a little while, but it's got over the line within that calendar period, whereby people can actually go online, apply online. We can shortlist online and set everything up from interview protocols. And the great thing about that is we can actually do that system blind as well. So that takes away all that kind of element of potential individuals having certain ways of recruiting that maybe they have in the past when you had the old CVs and things like that. But what we have now is really good opportunity to build on that platform and move forward. And there's alerts now that come out as well. And that works for the line manager as well as also then for the team over in recruitment. This year, we've also done a full review of the whole time campaign and there's streamlined work streams off the back of that. And that's something that we need to build on then for the future. And I think there's discussions afoot as to whether a firefighter is a firefighter. So how do we align the whole time and on call? We've also used more media focused recruitment with step-by-step application videos for the whole time recruitment process that did launch the end part of last year. And that came with some very, very interesting information around how you apply, what you need to do, and a step-by-step talk through, as we've said, that actually helps people from all different walks of life, as well as paper-based versions as well. So we're trying to meet the needs of those that also may be neurodiverse. And as we said there, there's been a review already of kind of the internet pages for whole time and on call, but there needs to be sort of further work done around those information booklets to upgrade it all and have a look at what we're offering. So prior to all of that, there would have been a lot of outreach work done across the organisation in the last 12 months. And And that's one thing that the Morris report does talk about. We need to start maintaining in the communities that we go out to, not sort of dropping in and dropping out as and when whole-time recruitment takes place. But last year, Hannah did a lot of work around quite a number of different organisations. She's worked with L4K, a community group that does a lot of work down in Butetown and Newport, and lots of re-engagement work with sort of Butetown Boxing Club, where we have more diverse communities. They've run Firefighter of the Day, lots of attendance at things like the apprenticeship conferences at the centre. So trying to meet our needs from the young all the way through, people from diverse communities, males, females, all sorts of different categories in terms of what we've tried to link in with. And as a result of that, we've had a lot of positive action workshops off the back of it. And also there's been the creation of something called Workout with the Watch. They've run 10 sessions of that over the last year prior to the whole time campaign. And out of those 10, 2 of them were actually female only sessions. And that was to support people to come forward and learn how to prepare and get yourself ready for some of the tests that would be coming for the physical and practical. So over that period, Hannah and the team attended 94 events, school talks, interview guidance, all sorts of different things. There were really big events, careers fairs in the Motorpoint Arena, through to large scale events such as the 999 Day. So quite a lot of different things happening, but we've also tried to utilise our internal offerings as well in terms of linking in with cadets, linking in with volunteers, and having sessions with them to encourage them to come forward and have a think about obviously being a firefighter as a career. So that's the outreach work, and the recruitment statistics in terms of what the team did last year. There were actually 11 operational recruitment processes or campaigns delivered in that 12-month period. Everything from the really huge campaigns from whole time to area managers, group managers, watch managers, all sorts of different things. We've also advertised and recruited for 72 corporate posts, and that includes everything from HQ staff, cadet instructors, apprentices, auxiliary staff. And we'll come on to a little bit later about some of those roles being slightly more difficult to recruit for, depending on the specialism. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, 88 on-call recruits were placed on initial courses throughout that 12-month period. In terms of future work and the challenges that are linked in with the team, going to focus efforts on sustainable engagement strategy. So one thing we have talked about is a wider organisational engagement strategy. So rather than just having recruitment going to events and very much focusing on that, we've got community safety doing something else, and then we've got other media and comms doing something. We need a really good solid engagement strategy across the organisation. So why can't recruitment take some community safety stuff with them? Why can't community safety, I mean, they work in the service, they probably know a bit about careers. Can they talk to people when they're out? So is there some multi-skilling that we need to be doing across some of these aspects, rather than having 2 people from each team, which is quite a strong force. It's great to have lots of people there, but then when we think about the work back in the offices, there's a lot to do still there. So we need to make sure that we're supporting people to be able to get the right information.
Just extrapolating that line of thought then. So there's quite a chunk of people that work here who are not firefighters. And so what about the opportunity to explain to young people at careers events or whatever that there's a job in HR, there's a job in IT, there's a job in fleet, there's a job in finance? Because we do struggle to recruit people to these posts because people think, you know, that they would never. There are a number of people, I'm sure, who would like to work for the fire service but wouldn't want to be a firefighter or couldn't for whatever reason, whether they're eyesight or coloured ones, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We do talk about the range of careers, so it's not just specifically firefighters. We talk about all sorts of different aspects of being here and supporting you know, the whole service and getting trucks out the door. And I think a lot of people don't even think about us sometimes. So if you're working in finance, you don't automatically go, oh yes, the fire service is that right place for me. And so I think quite often it just doesn't come up on people's radar. So that's why we've got to increase the engagement and just go, you can do this. So it's not just those firefighter roles, quite right. It is also all these other roles that go, hey, have you thought about coming to us?
Because I spoke to someone who was in procurement and they said that they just wanted to work for the fire service, but in procurement. And they'd done that through a work placement.
Yeah.
So I think there's a real opportunity. There's missed opportunities there to
Need to market the service.
yeah, it's the service rather than just for fire, because I can imagine at a careers fair, they'll see South Wales Fire Rescue Service banners, and they'll think, well, that's just firefighters.
Developing the career booklet as well, aren't we, that shows the range of careers that
Yeah,
we've
we
got.
should do, yeah.
That's in work in progress at the moment.
Fire control as well. Yeah, big one, absolutely right.
Probably someone also working used to drive past this place and got a job somewhere else until they felt that they could find to join here. You know, there are people that just want to come and work here because they buy into the mission and the vision. So I think there's a real thing about recruitment being everybody from the cleaner, which is just fine.
Yeah, and building on that, that's where we talked about then about increasing our employer branding. So we need that to be a lot stronger. We want to go out and use different channels as well. So what are we doing with social media? I mean, I'm still on Facebook, but apparently that's not the in thing anymore. So, you know, I don't know what it is these days, Instagram, Snapchat, something else I've not even heard of probably, TikTok. So, you know, what are we actually using to get to those groups out there that are using something different to probably what we've been used to in the past? So
Yeah, you have to, because that's constantly changing. So if we have a policy that names certain things, then I think that's wrong. We should have a thing that talks about, you know, social media in this broader sense, because otherwise people, because I think Facebook is a generational thing, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? It's the younger people. If we, you know, we're looking to recruit older people and younger people, but if you want to go for young, so I guess the point I'm making is you have to be, what's the word? You have to disaggregate these things. You have to use multiple channels, multiple groups in the same campaign, and running a campaign that you ran last year and the year before in the same way, expecting to attract these groups. People just won't land in their inbox.
Yeah, definitely.
Literally.
So we need to have a look and see what we're
So
doing.
do you think okay, so a couple of questions then. Is that finished?
I can be.
No, sorry, carry on.
There's a little bit more.
Yeah, go on.
But I think Al might jump in on another later. So yeah, we talked about people exit. I think one thing Hannah wanted me to mention is moving on through the implications and the challenges. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we do from implication. We're trying to do a lot of stuff more in Welsh. We're trying to be more inclusive language, all that kind of stuff. But as we move down in terms of the actual challenges that we have at the moment is around that aspect of there are some areas that we are finding particularly difficult at the moment, things like health and safety manager, a lot of roles in finance, things like that. So we probably need to do some work around that. Al, I don't know if you want to expand a little bit on that aspect.
So those two areas we have faced significant challenge in the recruitment process. So we are looking at other ways to support our package in terms of remuneration particularly. So there is a report coming to Board of Commissioners in December that will present some options for discussion and decision there. And that hopefully will help alleviate some of the issues that we're facing around the recruitment aspects.
Yeah, I'm done now.
So just a couple of things. Anyone else got any questions? No, everyone's talking.
Chair, just one final point on recruitment as a whole. We had recently reviewed our recruitment process for full-time employees, and that was a discussion that was had at SLT level. We need to bring that discussion back to SLT with the new chief, because there are a number of areas that we need to look at around the question, is a firefighter, what is there a pathway into whole time, what does our fitness portfolio look like and the entry requirements there, eyesight tests and that sort of thing. So there's a package of stuff that we need to bring back to the senior leadership team for more discussion.
And also it's the sequencing as well within that process. So
Yeah.
the physical, if it's too early, the physical is the easiest thing to teach people, as opposed to cognitive skills, which are a lot harder to teach. And if we have the physical part of it too early on, we knock people out of the system too early on who could probably pass it or have a conditional appointment subject to getting a certain level of fitness up, which they should know beforehand. Because when I spoke to occupational health, there were some people that turned up didn't realise the fitness was what the fitness was. And that's just a lack of preparedness. But I think that yeah, it'd be good to review the whole King Kabulu.
Mhm.
When it came to the, and Dominic talked about the hydrogen being sort of an all Wales solution to, it was there?
The hydro.
Yeah. Was it hydro?
Yeah, so we're working with the other two services and Jonathan Frigo's team to develop that. It's a cultural assessment piece.
But I think they're great to work with the other two Welsh services, but they've got even less resources than we have, and we shouldn't be held back by waiting for the least able to get to the line before we can all start to cross. I accept that the whole thing is really, really important. We should do something to support our other services, but we're in a hurry, and we can't wait for people that can't keep up. So just make sure that we don't get caught out by not delivering it because we're waiting for someone from another organisation that couldn't or wouldn't. Okay. Broad terms, same comments I made about it's late in the day. I think when it comes to sort of recruitment, is there anything you consider that is sufficiently radical that we haven't done because some people maybe of a previous ilk were risk averse to recruitment? I mean, are we really going at it, everything, no holes barred? If you were starting again, how would it be this way?
I think we've got a lot of changes we probably need. And I think we all notice that from a people services aspect. We're probably very, very old public sector in terms of the way that we run things. It's quite bureaucratic, even from just getting a job authorised and getting it out. And you'll experience this with some of the roles that you've had with us recently. One piece of work that's ongoing at the moment is having a standardised documents that people can associate with us in terms of when we're going live. We used to update 3 or 4 different bits of paperwork, and you'd be flicking in between the job description, the person spec. So something more like the ACFO packs that have gone out recently, the Chief Fire Officer ones, they're a bit more engaging, they're a bit more modern, things like that. And everything's in one place, so you're not searching around. So we're trying to streamline all of that and streamline other aspects. But I think a lot of it's going to be down to our engagement and our comms. Those aspects of social media. So are we going to use TikTok, for example? I did actually see, I don't know if it was Monmouthshire Council or someone like that recently were on there talking about the housing. I'm not going to say that we would do it in exactly the same way, but we've got some fantastic visuals that we could be using as a service to really inspire people to come forward.
TikTok causes angst in government, doesn't it?
I think there's some potential security issues.
Yeah, there's some stuff because it's Chinese owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we ever end up with that difficulties, difficulty in the way they shut down access to. Well, anyway, but there are multiple
But there
platforms.
are different things that we can do, definitely. I think video seems to be the way to go these days, as opposed to people don't want to sit and read as much anymore. Is what we're trying to do.
Can they do the whole? I'm assuming they can do the whole thing on their device. Their phone.
They can do well.
Yeah,
They can do it
but-
online. Yeah, they can do it online, and some of it is mobile.
It's clunky. on the phone.
Yeah,
It's
But
quite
that's-
small, so.
And that's going back to that point, isn't it? If you look at the cohort under 25s, everything is on their phone. I mean, even my generation, we're doing banking and everything on our phone. So why can't an application?
It can be done,
It can be
but
done.
it's not.
But if we're going to try and reach this group of people and say, so we get someone interested, they say, by the way, you've got to go through this bureaucratic process and there's a load of paper involved, and we need to find a way of making it.
And maybe stage it. So one of the other things we're looking at is at the moment, hold time will go out annually. So you've got a one window of opportunity that's quite small in the year. Whereas if we did ongoing rolling engaged
Yeah.
expressions of interest, you could then monitor every month where you're attracting from and then do outreach where you're not. So to actually encourage a more diverse applicant base at the point at which we do press that button.
When it comes to the on-call and they have to provide a call-out base, if that's their home, I'm guessing, or wherever their place is working. But if there are people that work from home, why couldn't they just pop into the fire station and work there? And that becomes their call-out base, and then they go, right, they're there at work, aren't they?
That's what we're looking
You
at
do
at the
that?
moment. We're looking into that at the moment.
Right, I mean, that doesn't sound very revolutionary.
There's a piece of work being done in Abergavenny with Monmouth Council where they're offering to release as well. So there's some opportunities that we're exploring at the moment.
Because we've got to come at this in a different way to get through some of the blocks. And if we look at what's important to people, with a lot of homework, if people, my understanding is that people who are home working actually miss the work environment as well, whilst it's convenient. So it may be that if they worked a long way away, it suits them to work at home. But if they want to be a retained firefighter, they could go into the fire. And some of our retained stations don't have the facilities. Some of them do. They could use those facilities. Would we have an objection if they were to do that? Would they be you've got to give them a pass to get in and all that?
It's their employer having that, the voice in that as well, isn't it? So if they work for an employer from home, their employer needs to agree that, and where they're working from, there may be
Yeah.
sensitivities to what their permanent job is. That means the station isn't necessarily appropriate, or it needs certain reassurances for the employer.
Yeah.
So it's a piece of work we're looking at.
people.
Yeah,
We've probably got corporate staff who could work from stations that won't be firefighter on-call firefighters.
Yeah.
So instead of coming to headquarters to switch on a computer, they can go to our camp, switch on a computer and
Depends on
provide fire cover.
the way you live, doesn't it? Because of the facilities at
Oh, yeah.
stations, most of the stations have really got.
Oh, well,
yes, yeah,
Have people to work from.
Yeah, but we're going straight into a problem now. The solution is that it's options for people that can go,
Yeah.
as opposed to those that can't. Yeah.
Because these are issues that should be sort of shaping some of the capital programme about facilities and stations. Because if we want a workforce for the 21st century and they are going to be operating in a particular way and recruitment is a particular way, and then we have a facility that's been like this for the last, and the only investment has been in the gym. We need to look at tech. I mean, I think the tech at retained stations is, doesn't seem to be, we expect them to do PDRs, but they've got to come into the station to do it, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's really old school, isn't it? I mean, they should be able to access stuff on their devices and be able to do these things because their nature of work is different and we're shoehorning them into the way that the whole, it's almost like welcome to the whole time, because this is what you've got to do at a fire station, but actually we don't give them, how many PCs would be at a whole time fire station compared to an
Not
on
many.
call?
Similar, 2, 3,
Really?
yeah,
Yeah, we got,
mobile devices.
yeah. We want to be serious about tech and digital. We have to think about this in a really, really different.
Yeah, we've had similar conversations, a bit like apps on phones. And again, people come to you with a problem. Well, not people don't want the app on the phone, but but those that do, they can have it now.
Yeah.
So it's about those that want it and the options as opposed to why we shouldn't do it.
Right. Next, something less controversial.
I'm glad you said that. Okay, so this one is a little shorter than the others, you'll be pleased to know. So this paper is just to go over the outcomes of the original evaluation scheme and just look slightly forward into what our plans are going forward. So the original job evaluation exercise was conducted between 2020 and 22. It only applied to corporate staff who are aligned to Green Book terms and conditions. And the purpose of it was to ensure that our people were remunerated fairly in line with their current roles and responsibilities. Although there may be been some changes over time, and identify any areas where there may be underpayment, overpayment, and take appropriate action. Moving to 1.3. The same nature. It's just from ACAS. So the reevaluation of a job should only be triggered by significant and permanent changes to duties. Now that really relates to the follow-up from the original job evaluation where we set a base for everybody at the same time. Originally, as I said, it was only Green Book. There was a very thorough process which was facilitated by a company called the Gauge/PLAT, this sort of subtitle, who own the scheme, which is recommended and aligned with NJC. The employees were able to have a trade union rep if they wanted to, and they could have a line manager with them for an interview to discuss all of the questions in the system and go through all of the various factors involved in creating a final score, which then aligned to a grade at the end. So it was a very, very thorough process. They were allowed to bring additional evidence. People were, and still are actually even more so now, encouraged to give a certain amount of information, and then the evaluator will follow up with additional questions to just get additional clarity on certain things. There can also be an appeal following up. The table at the end of 1.4 shows the output from the original job evaluation exercise. So when you look at the posts versus number of employees, they are different, but that is because you can have a post that's got multiple employees in it. So some are what we call bucket posts. You could have 6 people doing the same job, and some are individuals. So that's where the difference in the figures is accounted for. At the time, there were appeals, and of the 52 received, there were no downgrading of posts. It is possible to have a reduction or an increase in a score, but still have no impact overall to the outcome in the end. So from the table, you can see that the majority, by far the majority of posts either stayed the same at that time or increased. And in fact, there was only just over 7% of posts where there was a decrease in the end. Those individuals were protected then for 3 years afterwards from their salary, and they were assisted to find alternate roles if they wished to move. Some did, some didn't, some left. But we've sort of moved past that now. That's looking back to the original. So looking forward then, we have a draft job evaluation procedure. So this is in point 2, sorry. It was drafted in 2022. I think there was a period of sort of a bit of turmoil, some bits and pieces happened. And with the changes that we are in the process of making at the moment, it's being redrafted, close to completion actually, but it's being redrafted at the moment, and we'll come to some of the reasons why in a second. So in point 2.2, you can see the job evaluations following the original job evaluation. So in 22 to 23, 3 were completed. 23 to 24, 9 were completed, and then up to date, so 24, and as far as we are now, there have been 9 completed. 2 have been explored and then paused for various reasons, and there are another 5 planned at the time of writing this report. There is an increase, but that would be to be expected over time after the original evaluation, and also given everything that's been happening, there's been a number of restructures and departments and changes which have required evaluation of new roles. At the top of page 60 of the pack, there's a table just showing a graph, just showing the range of evaluations conducted across different departments. Where they are slightly higher in finance department and people services, they're the departments that either have or are currently undergoing restructure, which is requiring evaluation of roles to be put out to recruit. So at present, it's just myself who is fully trained in conducting the job evaluations. And to remedy that and provide additional resilience, we've introduced a job evaluation board, which consists of our people services managers, and we've set up a timetable, which is further down in 2.4, of regular meeting times or dates where we'll have 4 slots per date, and any job evaluations that are required to be done will be ready to be conducted on that date with the line manager and employee. And that as such, then the other line manager, the other people services managers will be upskilled. We've done some work already on that.
Do you anticipate take up all these dates?
No, not necessarily. It's just to provide a monthly opportunity. And also calendars get very, very busy. So getting all 3 of us people services managers together is quite difficult sometimes. So if we know we've got that booked in, they're definitely available should anybody need them.
Job evaluation is quite complex, isn't it? It can
It is,
take on
yeah.
average 2.5, 3 hours. So to suddenly then get 4 people together.
Yeah.
Ad hoc through the month. So having a board, you know, there's a guaranteed slot.
Yeah, I guess we don't need to stand down.
Yes, that's what we've done. Yes.
Do you think the fact there's a board every month would encourage more people to come forward to job review, knowing that it isn't?
I don't think so, because there's quite stringent criteria that would allow a job valuation to go forward. It wouldn't just be conducted because somebody wants it.
Right, because it needs to be
You know.
done properly to reflect
Yes.
the nature of the work people are doing.
That's right. Yes, yeah. And hopefully you'll see once our draft procedure comes out, you'll see the eligibility process and the process for applying for it is quite stringent as well. So let's move on then. So job valuation board. That's the whole of it, really. I'm just thinking we've kind of gone through it all, so it's through. Yes, yeah. So you can see from the evaluation and conclusions in point 4, it's a reiteration of what we were talking about at the beginning of what the point of essentially the job evaluation is, that there's transparent and objective evaluation of posts, and it's to the benefit of the service to have this in place. Does anyone have any questions about any of it?
Well,
I have got a question. I don't know, a question, observation,
Mhm.
gap in my knowledge. So we've got our job evaluation process. So internally, we've got a threshold of where we can go with job evaluation. What do we do as a service to understand where we fit in the wider public sector, private sector? Sales, going back to the issue of health and safety manager and so is there a process for that? See how we gauge?
So we are pays negotiated centrally.
Yeah.
Green Book, as it is Grey Book. So we follow the NDC pay scale approach system. What we are doing now, though, good question, is looking at how we compare into finance roles and health and safety. How do we fare in the market, both public and private sector? We're already finding across Wales, with regards to finance roles, that there are similar jobs but being paid at different levels. So that's why we're putting the pay to commissioners in December around what were our options here. I think North Wales extended the pay scale slightly. We haven't done that. We've stuck to quite traditional. And because we did enter the job evaluation exercise, we were quite cautious around, I don't want to use the word meddling, but doing things that would trigger a whole organisation kind of review. So we need to tread cautiously and think about the impact and consequence of whatever direction.
The job evaluation model that we use would then feed into any bracket of grades, if you like, that came afterwards. They're sort of two separate issues.
then again, we also are having problems recruiting certain groups of people, which means that the current model isn't serving us. We can comply with the process, we can't get people into post, so we then have to look at what's happening within the market, and this goes back to where things like market supplements, and we don't do it here, but lots of other organisations do, and they're able to attract those people who then go to those organisations who choose not to come here because we don't pay it. And those things can be time life, they can be sector specific. We need to have see it as a flexible option to give us sort of room to pivot when the process that we've got is not delivering the expectations. So yeah, that was going to be my question about that's part of that forward, isn't it? Okay, anyone else got any questions? Right. Moving on then, forward work programme. Right, so I was spoke to Alison earlier. I want to go through this, and this is the one that's fairly easy to sort of deal with. We need to have a more tangible work programme in terms of the things that we're putting on it and the scheduling of things, so that we don't have things with long periods before they come back. From a performance management point of view, we want to make sure, right, that person's accountable. How many months is it going to take them to do it? Right, let's have it on board, let's get it done, ticked off, and also have RAG ratings on each of the ones that we have coming up, so that we know, is this good, is this project or this update red, amber or green, so and then we'll have a chart that goes along with it, similar to what Donovan uses or someone else, that tells us as a ready reckoner how are we performing in this committee in terms of the workload that we've got. Now, some of the things that relate to people services are going through your work, so we could still look at it here, even if it was for information, because we don't need to have two lots of boards making decisions on the same thing. So we don't want to get too much into in other people's turf, but we need to make sure that we're clear about the bits that we're responsible for and that they come through. Also, as in general terms, when we look at reports, we need comparative data. So they need to be looking at other brigades in Wales and also our peer group, because we're measuring ourselves against ourselves. We do 100% of one thing. Is that good? I mean, ostensibly it seems good, 100%, but it depends on how we use the metrics. So we need to understand whether we're performing. If we want to lead the way, we've got to be able to demonstrate that we're leading the way. And by doing that, we have to demonstrate what others are doing. And there is data available, because there are comparative data sets around that we can use. So that's one thing. And I think as a general thing as well, I think these meetings tend to be more challenging. You're all members of this board. There's no point pitching up and not getting involved in the discussion. If you've got something to say, I think people write a report and they're conscious that it's their piece of work, that they've spoken to a few people and it comes up and they want it to go through. I get it, because I've done it before. I've written reports, they've gone to a meeting. I think, well, I just want to get that one through the agenda and out the other end. But we need to be able to have robust and challenging discussions. If we want to be cutting edge, I can't think of an organisation that's cutting edge and passive at the same time. There is that sort of rigour of debate and challenge, which is healthy. I think that's the bit that we need to encourage people to accept, that being challenged is a good thing for the organisation, for that individual. It improves their understanding of the next time. They'll think, right, yeah, I'll remember that next time. I'll do that. Whereas if it just everything goes through on the nod, people just think, well, I'll just do the same thing again next time. And so we have a responsibility to set the tone and the template for challenge and discussion, and how we manage that then sets the tone and template for those people that work to you, in that they can then have rigorous challenge and they're not afraid to push back and ask questions. Because if we're not asking questions, then we don't need to be here at this meeting, because I could have just ticked all this lot off, online. So I think if we want to reach for the stars, then we're going to have to push ourselves each of ourselves harder. Okay. Yeah, you can push back as an example. So we'll agree this nominally, but then we'll go away before the next meeting. Date time, 7th of February?
Yeah, it will be the 7th of February.
7th of February, then we'll look for the pre-meeting earlier, then we'll look at the sequence of events, because it's quite a while to the 7th of February, isn't it? It's like 2 and a bit months. So we need to make sure if we're going to meet every 2 months, or if we're going to meet every how often, that it's relevant. Also, the other bit I'd like to add to the agenda is, after we've considered any items of business in the agenda, there should be a thing that is there anything that we want to report back to the Commissioners Board? Because if there's an issue here that's of concern to us, we should find a way of being able to escalate it to the final sort of the top board. So I think we should have something about things that we would want to say about what we're doing in this committee that the main board should be aware of. And I'll speak to the other commissioners, because we all need to be feeding in from our boards to the main Commissioners Board, so that we've got everything connected. Because at the moment, our committee just stops with us. It just sort of sits with us. So I think there's that. And I think any reviews, we talked about that, isn't it? They need to be sooner after the event, and more forward looking as well. Which is the same sort of thing that we did with the annual report. Yeah, it's a principle that I think that these things have been in the pipeline for a while, but going forward, we want those changed.
Maybe just on that point then about the look forward. For me, it's if we're just going to do what needs to be done and what has to be done for statutory point functions, and that's just maintaining the status quo, isn't it? So I think for the look forward should be almost aspirational in nature as well. It's like, here's what we have to do in training, but actually over the next year, here's what we want to aspirationally achieve in training.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be more ambitious, a lot of the stuff we do, as opposed to we'll just maintain the status quo.
And some of these are good news stories. We've done all these good things. I'd like to spend a bit more time on what isn't working as well. Where do we need to understand where the issues are? And also, as a general thing as well, some things that are coming forward with a bit more risk attached to them in terms of options. Because sometimes when you get options appraisals, the options are, well, one of them's crazy, so no one's ever going to do it. And the other one is, well, it's obvious you've got to do this one, and that's the options. And they're not really options appraisals. They're just like, you'd be mad to do this one, and you would have to do this one. Not
Illusion of choice.
Yeah, there's no choice.
Yeah.
So what you want is some real options that actually this one could achieve X, this one could achieve Y, but this one is risky, and these are the risks, and these are how the risks could be mitigated. Because we all talk about we have a good appetite for risk, and then everything that we get forward, not everything, a lot of things that come forward are vanilla. So we need to push ourselves. And that's about risk and innovation. So linking to the universities, reading the current technical journals, whatever it is, whatever the latest is going on in HR Monthly or whatever it is, these things, or Training Monthly or tech or whatever, we should be thinking, if we want to be at the cutting edge, the things that we're doing they should be appearing in the journals. We shouldn't be reading about what other people are doing. We set our own agenda here in terms of where we want to go. If we really want to reach for the stars, and then we look at the risks that are required to do it. We look at where the capacity and the capability comes. We don't need to do it all ourselves in-house. These universities are crying out for projects, and because the universities want to make themselves relevant to the workplace. The challenge to universities has always been people are provided that tip out universities that are not as well suited to the workplace in terms of their skills and attributes. Really qualified, really bright, and all the rest of it. But how relevant is that to the workplace? That's always the thing that comes from employers. So they want to make themselves relevant. The students want to make themselves relevant to the workplace because it improves their employability. Because back in the day when I went to university, there weren't that many people. So generally as a graduate, you had a bit of an easier shot at things. Now, lots of people are graduates and it's more competitive. So what gives that edge? I say that as having been the vice chairman of the university, and that's one of the things that they really, really stressed on, employability, because otherwise you're just going to go into the end of the course. So there's just a few tips and pointers, things like I was just thinking about. We can set our own standards here, we can set our own aspiration, and then we won't get charts with 100% spinning the road. Because we should be, and if we're making mistakes, that's okay as well. It's okay to make mistakes as long as they're quantified and qualified. But what we don't want is the same mistake 5 times in a row. What we want to understand is people really tried to push that thing. They did it with the best information they had. They tried to achieve something. It didn't work. And I think we also have to then think through how that impacts on the individual that's done that, because some people, if it's part of their promotion process, and they've got to have project experience, they're going to pick a project that's going to deliver widgets, some of them, because they want to tick in the box. Someone who picks a challenging project, which fails, gets a cross. Actually, I don't think so. Someone who picks a challenging project should still get a tick because they really tried to do something, as opposed to someone who just coasted and got over the line. I think we need to think about how we judge people for success and failure, and that crossing a box or not achieving something isn't, I think it's too binary. Okay, right, there's plenty to think about. Thank you for your reports and everything. Anything else? Anyone got any other questions before we wrap up? No?
Thank you.
Thanks.